morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Magazine for this July 17th, 2019. You have your guest host, James J. Maloff, in the studio, and we are joined today by our own Mayor, Zach Vruwink. Mayor, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, James.
I appreciate you joining us this morning, and we're not going to be alone, I guess. At about 10:30, Joe Terry's going to be with us.
That's right. So we'll save our garbage and refuse and recycling questions and comments for that portion of the show.
Looking forward to talking with Joe in just a little bit. And we also want to mention Travis Plowman with Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Good to see you, Travis. Thanks a lot for joining us today. And I should mention, too, for those of us on camera, I am not trying to gain cool points by wearing sunglasses inside. I had an incident with my parents' dog last Friday. He scratched my cornea a bit. So my eyes are a bit light sensitive, and they told me I could either go with a patch or the sunglasses. And I just wasn't ready to do the whole interview as a pirate.
As a pirate,
yeah. I thought that would kind of take away from the seriousness of things we had to talk about. It would lose its charm pretty quick. Just so you guys know over there. But we do have quite a few things to talk about today.
Yes.
And you guys had a council meeting just wrapped up.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
How did that go?
Last night's council meeting, it was a longer meeting. Quite a few topics. There's a lot of ordinances on the meeting. So we one of the more high profile issues has been the anti-bullying ordinance. Mm-hmm. Got national and I understand international reporting on that topic. It's been kind of interesting to watch where the reporting has gone. That had its second reading in front of the city council last night, and that passed the city council. The addition that was included in that meeting was a graduated fine schedule. Mm-hmm. So $50 for the first offense plus court costs, then $100, and then $250. And so that's been the bullying ordinance is now been passed, and then that'll have to get published before it becomes official here in the city.
Now, you mentioned that it's gained national and it certainly local, press. One thing that I'd like to kind of, and I'm glad you brought it up because I would like to kind of just I've read reports that are way off.
Yeah.
And I would like to kind of just, I know that our listeners probably know this because they're hometown, a lot of them, but we have a lot of listeners outside of the city and stuff. Could we go through real quickly what the ordinance exactly is so that we have the actual facts of it?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think, it's been interesting to watch the report, read the reports because they are a bit all over the place. The city has always had an anti-harassment or a harassment ordinance on the books. Mm-hmm. So a lot of bullying activity actually can fall within the ordinance that's in existence. But it was felt that the school district and others that youth bullying maybe isn't directly addressed by that existing ordinance. So this model ordinance, I would call it, has been adopted by other municipalities, and we're not the first. But the school district has a tremendous amount of intervention when it comes to bullying efforts, and they've got a process and many steps that these bullying reports get addressed by before it would arrive on our doorstep. The school generally provides a letter home. Now our school resource officers, as we have a relationship with the school district, we've got 2 school resource officers in the city that are in the schools. They address things from truancy to use of any illegal substance under the age of 18 or illegal substance period, all those types of things. And so the bullying piece is provided, the officers have discretion, of course. So should the district feel that a case has gotten to a certain point where they haven't been able to remedy this, either through counseling interventions, through a meeting between the parents and the student, or guardians and the student, or others, that sometimes it may need or warrant a citation, and just to get the notice and to raise the awareness that this is not appropriate behavior. So the ordinance was really referred to us by the police chief, our police chief at the city, as well as the school superintendent and the school board, who felt that this was an appropriate measure to take to implement. The hope, of course, is to never have to write a citation, as with any ordinances that govern violations here in the city. But we know that human nature warrants sometimes a slap on the wrist, or in this case, a fine that might have to address that behavior.
Well, and it's certainly bullying's a hot topic for many reasons, and one of them certainly is how different it is since you and I were in school, and how bullying has kind of gone from not just being at the schoolyard, but being at home when you're on your computer and that. So it's understandable, but I also think that it's good that we kind of clear the air about what exactly this means. And I don't want to get too off topic, but if I could ask, how this feels like something that usually certainly normal, not normal, but a lot of the times the schools take care of and everything. Was it for lack of a better word, was it uncomfortable for you guys in city management to kind of feel like you were doing something and kind of making a law or a rule or anything involved in that? Yeah,
it was kind of a unfamiliar sort of experience. I would say. I think to your comment about how it's different. Actually, a reporter last night after the meeting asked me, that's been reported that cyberbullying is becoming a larger thing, right? We've got the First Lady is kind of making it an issue about bullying and anti-bullying. And it's interesting, having come from a time when probably the three of us in the room here came of age when ICQ, instant messaging, and that was brought about. It was the first opportunity for people to say something over electronic communications that they wouldn't otherwise say to someone's face. And I think that's unfortunately been a consequence of the great technology and social media that is now in existence today. Is people do feel sometimes maybe liberty or license to say something they wouldn't otherwise say in this setting, in a personal setting. So I think that's unfortunately a consequence, and perhaps this is one more tool for us to address that. With social media, unlike the blogs of yesterday where there used to be people could hide behind a screen name, there generally is accountability today that your name is associated with it. But with social media, you can say it and then unsay it by deleting it. And, unfortunately, we know you say something, you can't unsay something formally.
Yeah, and now there is one thing that they teach you over and over again is think before you hit send. Boy, if there's a sentence that you could go by, and I think it's important also to note that this is something that not only us here in this city, but all around the country, all around the world, really, is there's no playbook for this. We're all kind of learning as we go here and kind of adapting to the changes. So as we we'll tinker with things and try to work things as we can, and I think an ordinance like this is important for that. To, if anything, to kind of show something, to kind of do something about it, because something certainly needs to be done, and you don't want to just sit there with your hands in the air. So.
Right.
Now, what other kind of things did you guys have go over with the meeting?
So we also had a second reading of an ordinance that would put an alderperson as a regular member of the Waterworks and Lighting Commission. Presently, the commission is made up of commissioners that are submit their interest to the city council, and the city council approves their position on the Waterworks and Lighting Commission. The ordinance did pass last night to add to replace one of those regular members that have traditionally gone through the city council approval process with an alderperson. And I don't know exactly where every alderperson is at on that particular issue, but the idea is that as the Waterworks and Lighting Commission is an entity of the city, really a subunit of the city, that the city it was believed the city should have more of a direct connection with the commission and the commission's actions. A lot of cities have it in a variety of forms, where if the city owns the utility, the water and electric utility, the mayor sometimes will sit on that commission. Some are alderpersons, some are just all of these sort of at-large commissioners that are appointed by the council. So that was a change that happened last night. I wouldn't say it was directly in response to any particular issue, but just a general desire to have, again, more stable relations or direct relations between the city governing body and the commission.
Sure. And that makes sense. And that's good to hear that went through. Okay, so I know that we have other things that happen at the meeting. I don't know if you want to touch on any more of those.
Sure. Another project that is happening within the city is... another ordinance, I guess. First is the council decided to not advance, so it'll come back for a second reading, I believe, the creation of a 9th aldermanic at-large district. There had been a lot of history here, and I'm not exactly well read on the nuances, but essentially the council, as many know in the community, went from 19 members down to 11 and then down to 8 members. And there has been some desire to add another to create an odd number of council members. The unique position that I find myself as mayor, or the mayor's position is, as well as in a lot of places around the state that have even numbered governing bodies, is sometimes there's tie-breaking requirements. There were opportunities for that last night on the refuse piece. And it puts the mayor, who's your chief executive, in a legislative sort of fashion, when generally the mayor's legislative power is manifested in the veto. So it's kind of a unique thing. It's not unique to Wisconsin Rapids, though, but that unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, whatever, the ninth piece did not advance for a positive approval. Another piece to the council meeting last night was the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission approved and recommended for approval an expansion at the Wisconsin River Orthopedics facility over off of 54 and Peach Street, so adjacent to Spirus and Marshfield Clinic. They're going to be adding a fairly substantial expansion to their medical facility, and there will be job creation associated with that. So we're excited about that project. I believe they're planning to break ground yet this year and then perform construction throughout the winter season. One project that we haven't talked about, I don't think, on our last show was another expansion that Woodtrust Bank is going to be relocating their 8th Street branch to the outlot in front of Tractor Supply. And so I believe that project's going to be getting underway fairly soon as well. So those are a couple of points from the Planning Commission and the council meeting. There was a number of other elements of business last night, from HR to finance and property to public works. But those are generally the highlights, I guess, at this point that I wanted to mention.
Okay. As long as we've covered the meeting as well as we can here, what I wanted to do next was just ask how you're doing.
Yeah.
You do a lot of these, and you're a pretty busy guy and everything.
Yeah, right.
So, just a real simple question. Just how you doing? How you been? How you been enjoying summer?
Summer's been great. I'll tell you, it's nice to have sunny days. I think everyone's been looking forward to having some sun. The gloomy days of the spring, if you can call it that, I think weighed on everyone heavily. I think it was hard to get up in the morning after you didn't see sun for a couple of days and get to the office or whatever. So I felt that myself, and I heard that a lot from residents. That it was hard to get motivated through those periods of time. So unfortunately, it trails into kind of an overwhelming nature, because you start pick up, you feel better about emotionally, and you feel more motivated to get things done too. And I know city staff and I, there's a ton of stuff happening at the office and at City Hall with projects and just things that are sort of on our radar that we're planning for. When you're in this months of construction, you're also planning for whatever's coming in the fall and the spring. So, but it's been nice. My family has a cabin up north on a lake, so I've been able to get up there a couple of weekends around the 4th, which was nice, just to get away from the city, for a night or two, and then to come back and you feel re-energized.
When I don't know about you guys, you and Travis, but I know I've been, for those first couple of days we didn't have rain, I was looking over my shoulder just waiting for it. I kind of expected Mother Nature to just drop a cloud just on me like Charlie Brown or something. But so when you were talking about the motivation part of things, when it comes to those grinding days, those days where even on an early morning it already feels like a long day. How do you yourself kind of keep motivated or kind of bring your energy up? I know for me, I listen to music or something like that. Is there something that you do
definitely.
to kind of?
Yeah, occasionally if I'm at office time, like yesterday, I turn on Spotify and listen to a little bit of screamy music. It helps me just kind of break up the monotony. Surprisingly, not a day goes by where I don't get a phone call from a resident on a particular matter. And, as much as I get calls that might be concerned or complaining about a particular situation, I think equally I get calls that are very much affirming to what the city is doing. And so I think that's naturally helpful. It's sort of serendipity, I guess, maybe in some sorts, that somebody's going to call and say, I really appreciate that the city was able to address the potholes on my street. I thank you for, taking my call originally and passing that information along. And I always remind folks, you can't complain at the coffee circles. You've got to complain to the top if you're unhappy with certain thing that's happening in the city. So I always welcome that and encourage it, because for me, it's sort of a taskmaster thing, on those days where it's gloomy, you just got to really stay focused and just crank out things that were on a priority list. And there's something good feeling that mitigates the overwhelming feeling once you can get some of those things off your list and out of the way. So that's gratifying. Yeah,
and I think you bring up two really good points there. One, I know for me, one of those motivating things, we get a lot of great feedback from our listeners. And I mean, positive and negative. And I look at especially the positive as something to kind of help, recharge charge me, get me recharge or something sometimes. But anything that could be considered negative or what have you, in that gray area, like you were talking about there, that's also motivating. And that's also something that I think that for anybody who's making comments, especially those light ones, that, like you said, somebody messaging you or calling you, but that that the city fixed a pothole or something, and we may not think those comments mean that much. They really can. They not only can motivate you that day, but later on, and even weeks and months later, thinking about those moments. So. And just as important as it is for you to express things that you're concerned about in your city, it doesn't hurt to say that stuff either. That goes a long way with people.
Absolutely. And I think, I pride myself on being approachable or at least accessible if people don't necessarily feel comfortable coming up to me in person, but, or sharing their concern, probably more so in person. There's so many other means to do that now. Yeah. And I think that's something that gives me gratification is that people are willing to raise those issues. If they, I'm not able to travel every 150 miles of our streets every week, and so I don't see the neighborhood concerns. I don't see maybe the property that's maybe slipped a little bit in its maintenance. The city needs to hear those things. And so I think that's something that folks always, especially local government. I mean, that's the cool thing about being mayor is people can find me. I mean, they can show up to City Hall and make an appointment if I'm not available at that moment, pick up the phone, give me a call, send me a message on Facebook. I mean, I'm happy to resolve those issues because they go a long way in making our community a better place. And we all live here, and we want to see it thrive. We want to see it better than what it is. And so I think we all have a role to play in that.
I think that one of the things that kind of gets lost in the shuffle, especially for somebody who's been in office for a while, is that you chose this profession, you got into this. You didn't get into it for the money.
Right.
You got into it because you care about this community and you wanted to do something about it.
Yes.
It's something that every single person listening can relate to. They care about their area, and so you did something like this to become mayor, to do this. So you certainly want to hear feedback. You want to hear those things, the positive, the negative, the gray, all those things, to make the city better.
Yeah, definitely.
It is an interesting note, just touching on that, coming from where you did to get into politics, you've really got to care about your city to do that. You came from a very different angle in the technology sector and all that to come into this. Right. So it really shows that the passion there, that you want to hear from people and that you care about it.
Yeah.
I know that the Youth Council has a movie night coming up.
They do.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Hobie, I think, was our guest the last month, if I'm not mistaken.
Did a great job.
It's hard to believe we're already into mid-July.
I know,
is it the 17th already today? So tomorrow night on the 18th, the Youth Council is going to be hosting their first ever summer movie night. And it was a project that they've worked tirelessly for the last year since they kicked off in the fall last year to host an event that addresses some of the concern that there's not enough youth-friendly activities offered in the summertime or in general. And so this is their attempt to bring an event to the community that's really youth-led, and they were engaged in making it all happen. So weather permitting, tomorrow night at 9:15 p.m., the community is invited to come out and watch a movie. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is the movie. Yeah. And it's going to take place at Robinson Park tomorrow night.
Anybody else, when you think of Ferris Bueller, you immediately think of the car scene?
Yeah,
I immediately think of that parade and the car scene and everything. It's the first thing to pop in my head. But a classic movie and a great pick for this. Yeah. And it also is noteworthy that it is the Youth Council, pushing and making so much of this happen and everything. These are kids helping out kids. These are community members, looking to help out the youth and the other youth members and stuff. So for everything that can be said, again, with that, that there needs to be this and needs to be that, there are a lot of things that are going on too. Yep. And important to note those.
Yeah, and I think just important to mention, in case of inclement weather, I don't know what the forecast holds for tomorrow night, but that the event will be moved to McMillan Library. So if it's stormy out, basically, head to McMillan for the movie. And before that, I think starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, Chatterbox is going to be set up. The Chatterbox restaurant and catering is going to be set up, and they're going to be donating 20% of the proceeds toward the Aquatic Center Pool Project fundraising. So if individuals want to grab a late dinner tomorrow night starting at 8 o'clock before the movie, certainly feel free to do so. It's a drive-in movie, as well as if you want to bring your own blanket or stadium chair to sit out at Robinson Park. It's going to be a fun night, all hosted and sponsored by the Youth Council.
That's fantastic, and a great chance to not only get some good food, but put the money towards a good cause.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Mayor, before we take our first break, and again, we're speaking with Mayor Zach Vruwink, I wanted to touch on the cooling shelters, and I almost called them the warming shelters. We're not there yet. We don't even want to think about that yet.
Yeah,
we're not even thinking about that. Just ignore that. We'll cut that out in editing. But the cooling shelters, just to give some information on that for those that don't know.
Yeah, the city is offering both the Centralia Center as well as the library as a place if forecast is really hot the rest of the week, and if folks want to get in a place that's cool, that is another public setting, another option than maybe going into a retail store or something. Both at Centralia Center and McMillan Library during their normal business hours are being officially offered as cooling shelters, a place of respite if folks don't have access to a place to cool down.
Good to know, and we'll certainly repeat that on the air here, like during Over the Back Fence and everything. We want to make sure that our listeners understand that, know that, and that's an option for them.
Excellent, thank you.
We've just been joined by Joe Terry. We're going to introduce him after this commercial break. We'll be right back with more Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 WFHR. And we are joined by not only our own Mayor, Zach Vruwink, right now, but we have Joe Terry in with us. Joe, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm excellent today.
Boy, just 81. Just for a second, can we just appreciate that it's 81 out? That just feels good to say.
It's not 15 below and moving snow. So
exactly. Nobody has to shovel today. That breaking news, wonderful news. Even if it's redundant, I don't care. I'm going to say it. I mean, we don't have to shovel today. That's nice. But we do have some things to talk about, and certainly having Joe in today, we wanted to touch on the automated garbage system, and certainly anything that's been going on with that, any updates, any concerns. So let's just go ahead and dive right into that.
Sure. So the city started its automated garbage collection on July 8th. So we've got a week and a half in now. It's been working pretty well. We've had some comments wondering about, gosh, it looks like the truck doesn't say Wisconsin Rapids on it. We are renting a truck right now. Our new truck is still in production, and it'll be later this summer before we get it. So the trucks that the folks are seeing are what they're going to see for a little while. For the most part, it's going pretty well. I'd like to really give a shout out and a thank you for all the folks that read the literature that came and are placing your carts out properly. It makes the transition for our drivers excellent. When folks can keep that distance, that spacing between the carts. If they see how it's collected, there's an arm on the truck that comes out, and and it's big. And the driver's got to park the truck right in the right spot to get it. Yeah. So if there's something close by, it makes it really challenging. So folks that are keeping those carts separated, it makes all the difference in the world in us being able to get the job done.
Touching on that real quick, Joe, if you don't mind, not to interrupt you, but as far as so listeners know, in case they don't understand yet or anything, how far apart should they keep the garbage and the recycling bins from each other?
Yeah, so we want to keep the carts 3 feet away from anything, whether it's another cart or a mailbox or a parked car, a tree, whatever. It gives that operator enough room to reach and grab that cart and safely tip it and safely put it back without damaging anything, whether it's the city truck or someone's personal mailbox car, the other cart, tipping stuff over. We want to do it nice and neat, and that works really well.
Good. And it's also probably noteworthy that we're able to do these things now in the summer than in the winter. We were just joking about shoveling and everything. That'd just be the logistical nightmare with the winter. With this now, we've kind of got a bit of a chance to kind of get used to this and understand how far apart things need to be or where we need to set things so that when the winter comes and winter drops a bunch of snow on us, it'll be a little easier to kind of navigate those things where we want to put stuff. And before I cut you off, I'm sorry, Joe, but where were you going to go with that?
Just going to say that for folks that are having questions about the program, if they didn't receive information or maybe they got it but didn't read it, we have everything on the city's website. If you go on to wirapids.org and in the search area, you just type in garbage or type in recycling, we've got a whole bunch of information. We have that you can print out. We've got the routes. We've got the calendars. For many folks, they'll notice that the collection day has changed. And that's a change for a lot of people. We're collecting 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And sometimes folks are used to, they always came by 8 o'clock. That's not necessarily the case anymore with our route changes. People need to have their cans out by 6, and it may be end of the day before it's collected. So as our staff gets accustomed to the new routes, and it's a change for everybody. And if, for instance, if we do miss something, give us a call the next day, and we can come and get it. But it does need to be out by 6 a.m.
You bring up a point that I really wanted to hit on. That's an extremely good point that I think people need to keep in mind too. Is that the garbage men in the city is also kind of adjusting to this just like we are. Mm-hmm. And again, just like we were talking about with bullying earlier, there's no playbook necessarily. We have to kind of figure these things out as we go.
Right.
And the way we do that is working together. Not really barking so much as if you have concerns, addressing them, but and not complaining necessarily. Just sitting there and throwing your hands up in the air. If you have a concern, bring it to, or I have to say, the city webpage that you mentioned there, again, wirapids.org, you can find out a lot of the questions that I had for this interview with you were answered in that. So, I mean, it's a great website. Nice job, but really killed the interview. I got to tell you, I had like 8 questions. No, but seriously though, it is a great chance for people to kind of find out the information of simple questions that you may have that can be answered right there. Otherwise, they can contact the department with you.
Correct. Yes, and we didn't invent the wheel here. So many municipalities have been doing this style of service for a long time, decades, and we did use them as an example on setting ours up so that we wanted to be successful coming out of the gate. So it is a great resource, and if there are some general questions or something that doesn't seem right, people can call, but that website is really a great reference.
It is. Now, and Mayor, I'll ask you this question too, with both of you out there. Is there any questions, are there some questions that have come up more than others when it comes to this?
Mm-hmm. I think one of them was, why did the city make the change? I think the city had been planning to make this change for all of 7 years. We knew our garbage trucks had a finite life. We knew that the number one public risk or sort of public health concern from occupations at municipal levels is refuse collection as being the top, probably most dangerous because of the fact that there's so many slips and falls, trips. If we're picking up really large items that are well over somebody's ability to lift that, be overweight items that are too heavy, workman's comp injuries are just through the roof in that profession. And we wanted to, while we didn't have a horrible experience, knock on wood, where we had major injuries, we had a lot of risk for it, right? And we've got 6,000 stops or so or more in a given
8,000.
In a given week, and that every stop is an opportunity for an injury. And so we municipalities have long, as Joe said, introduced this service method for collection a long time ago, and it was our time. And so that was one of the reasons why we made the switch. There are efficiencies to be gained. We made 4-day route pickup week, and that was one because we don't want to have to shift the schedule too far when we're on holiday weeks and things. And then I think the other benefit to the city, so beyond the workman's comp, the safer experience for our workers and employees, is the fact that we're now able to apply a few more staffing resources, labor resources to other streets maintenance activities. We long hear that the city and cities are facing this challenge on how do we afford to maintain our infrastructure, whether it's our streets or our parks or other public spaces. So the more opportunities we get to add labor to that without adding additional cost to the taxpayer is a benefit. So some people say, well, you're saving money with this, but we're not actually saving money because we're turning those resources right back into, so we're saving money in garbage collection, yes, but we're adding those resources into other maintenance activities.
And it's all a connected kind of a circle kind of thing there with that.
Yeah.
Joe, is there some questions or things that you've heard more than others?
Yeah, I think, just the typical new program type questions. And we've had a number of people, when we started our recycling program, we experienced quite a few violations. And as we implement this garbage program, what we're doing is sending our own ordinance enforcement officer along with the trucks. And instead of, writing tickets and being the bad guy, for the first few weeks here, we're really trying to educate the public and just let folks know, hey, this isn't the right way to set it out. You need to have the handle towards the house. It needs to be, the lid needs to be closed. You can't put things next to it. It needs to be spaced properly. We're really trying to educate folks because we really don't want to have to conduct enforcement measures. It's not. We have better things to do, right?
So I think very well said.
Yeah, and for the most part, I think because we've implemented a similar program with recycling, we really haven't had a lot of general questions. Primarily just comments about the change in service, the change in the routes. For a number of folks, the recycling week flopped. So they had recycling 2 weeks in a row, or they had to go a week without with this new schedule. So it's really kind of the growing pains from implementing something new, and I'm confident in a few weeks those growing pains are going to subside, and it'll be business as usual.
Completely agree. And I think it's awesome that you bring up the recycling thing, because that's something that I wanted to touch on, because I remember in this area when we first introduced that, when that first kind of got going, and it seemed like every other person I talked to, we'll never figure this out. How am I supposed to know? Am I supposed to look at the bottom and look for a number or whatever? I can't figure this out. And now everybody understands recycling. Everybody knows how it works and everything. Routine, it goes a long way. And the more you get used to these things, the more that it'll come second nature. It'll be routine, and whether it's a month or a year from now, you'll kind of be like, well, I don't even remember what it was like before this, and it's important for all the notes that both of you have mentioned, but it's also one of those things. It's makes our area that much cleaner. And that goes a ways with that as well. And there's nothing but benefits to this. There's no downside to doing something like this, and it benefits all of us. There's really nobody that doesn't benefit with something like this. So there was two things I wanted to mention also. We've had a number of questions from our listeners about larger items.
Sure.
It seems like everybody has one of those old TVs they're trying to get rid of, and whether I'm telling them on over the back fence or I'm telling them at the coffee shop or something like that, it isn't the old days. You can't, you're not going to be able to put your grandpa's 45-inch TV on outside and expect the garbage people to get that. It isn't like that anymore. You have to take it to places. Can we touch on that for a second? Not just those random items that people kind of want to get rid of or something, but they can't necessarily.
Yeah. So if it's an appliance or a piece of furniture that someone's replacing, more often than not, the company that's going to deliver that appliance or piece of furniture will also provide the pickup service for that. So that's one way to do it. If you're not replacing something and you're just getting rid of it, that is definitely a change. When we implemented our recycling program, that ordinance changed, and we were supposed to stop picking up those large items, and in many cases, our staff still got them anyway. And so some of those goals weren't met. We're trying to kind of ease into it. But for folks, if they're moving out and they have a lot of things, having the landfill nearby is helpful. Also between Advanced and Waste Management, folks can contact them and get a dumpster dropped off, so that if they've got a lot of stuff they need to get rid of, they can have that set curbside. They can fill it up, and then the company will come take it away. It is a service that that not everybody needs all the time, and that's really one of the things that we were looking at when we were trying to put this program together. Is what's the right level of service? We can't do everything with the budget that we have, and we have to compromise and try to set priorities for how much road work do we want to do, how much leaf collection do we want to do, how much garbage collection service do we want to provide, and really what we settled on is a level of service that most families are going to need on a daily, weekly basis. And some of these other activities, it is, it's unfortunate that we can't still provide it, but it's not every day that you've got a large item to get rid of. And and there are, again, it's maybe not as convenient, but there are ways to have it taken care of privately. If it's not a family member or friend or neighbor, there's local businesses that'll help out.
You mentioned about 4 or 5 different options right there. you know, and there are others even. So there are plenty of options for it. And I think that also one of the things that needs to be noted is that this is an environmental issue. This is something that's this is going on throughout the whole country, throughout the whole world, really, in most countries. I shouldn't say all countries, but most countries, to benefit our planet. You know, all of our neighborhoods. You know, ours here and the one in Sri Lanka, the one in Australia, the one in New York, all that stuff. So I mean, that's an important note to be making too, is that these changes are happening not only to benefit us as a community, but us as a world.
That's right.
So it's important to keep those things in mind too. I think you know, when you're I can't just bring my old TV down to the garbage and just leave it there. I've got to haul it all the way to the dump. Yeah, I know it's a bit of a hassle, but it also is a lot better than 20 years from now our grandchildren's children or what have you having to deal with that TV.
That's
you know,
right.
I mean, these are things we have to think about. We have to. It's not. I'm not. Getting on a pulpit here or anything. It's something that we all can agree on. That we have to take care of the planet, and that's one of those things that does it. Those kind of steps and these things that we're doing, and it's good for everybody.
Yeah. I would add just a couple things in terms of alternatives, right? So appliances, Focus on Energy in Wisconsin's got a great program for an appliance take-back program. Information's on the utilities website. I think we probably got some on our city website or even on the state's website for appliances. Working appliances, of course, there's some limitations. One other contact we made was with 211. A lot of folks are not familiar with 211 as a great resource in the community. It's supported countywide through United Way. And so folks are in a situation where they have a couch or a large piece of furniture, they can't move it, or they can't, same thing with snow shoveling and everything else. That is a resource, and there are some churches in town that have volunteered their volunteer corps to assist people in the community. So if it's a situation where they just can't deal with it, setting at the curb certainly isn't an option if they can't get it out of their house. But there's also an appropriate way for folks to get some help in town that can't get that resource. So I just want to mention those two. There's great opportunities for folks that are looking to part with things. City also has a negotiated rate at the landfill with the city's garbage collection piece, and on electronics, as it's been mentioned, a lot of these retailers, Best Buy and others, will take those appliances back for a fee, of course, but they contain hazardous materials, so you just can't throw it in the ditch. And I know we watch for those things. The county watches for those types of illegal dumping activities, and it's amazing how they're able to track people down. I've seen reports of tires and all these other things. They find those folks.
It is a CSI episode watching that kind of seeing those kind of things go break down and everything. It's actually kind of fascinating to me. But it also is a great point because for whatever time or money you think that might save you, dropping it off like that, they're going to find you. It reminds me of the people who try to do the high-speed chase. They always get caught. What are you thinking? In the human history, since we've had cars and there's been car chases, you get caught. Don't run. Why are you doing this? And it's just going to lead to more money, more problems, and everything. So taking it to a landfill, and I'm really glad you mentioned that too, because I wanted to mention 211 as well. A great resource for people. I don't know how much it happens. I know when I was a kid, one of the things you did to pass time was kind of going around and seeing if people needed their lawn mowed or shoveled or something. And one of the other things that would come of that is sometimes taking people's garbage down, sometimes those larger items. So, kids out there looking for a buck or something, that's something to think about too.
And the electronic devices, while it may be a little inconvenient to take those to a place and have them recycled, the other thing that's important about doing that is not only might there be some hazardous materials in those devices, but there's also precious metals. And, and being able to recycle the gold and the things on all those computer connectors, it helps prevent the need to do mining and other, other activities that are also potentially environmentally challenging.
Great point, Joe. Yeah, extremely good point right there. Yeah. We are speaking with Mayor Zach Vruwink and Joe Terry right now, and we're going to take a very short break. We'll be back with more, but I do want to let you know that your calls are welcome, 424-2600. If you guys have any questions for either gentleman, give us a call at 424-2600. We'll be back with more Morning Magazine in a moment here on AM 1320 WFHR. Where we have our final segment of Morning Magazine, and we are joined by Mayor Zach Vruwink and Joe Terry. And again, thanks for joining us, guys. I appreciate it. Our phone lines are wide open for you. If you want to call in, 424-2600 is the number to call. Now, Mayor, I know that we had some other things we wanted to talk about with the financial
the financing property community.
Financing property, thank you. Yeah.
Certainly willing to take calls too, but I wanted to share that the city is considered and approved last night dropping the sale price of the Savon lot, the city subdivision, the Savon subdivision off of 25th Avenue and Bulls Circle here just down the road. From here, the city council felt that there still are some lots that haven't been developed, and so we're going to be dropping the sale price on those. And the same, and another point on city property that's related is the Centralia Center. The city has some lease spaces within the Centralia Center that are vacant, and so we're going to be marketing and making that available following this. And the other piece I'd mention is, in light of all the kind of unfortunate situations and circumstances that have happened around security and just really tragic situations, one at a city hall just this last spring, the city's going to be taking measures to increase city hall security. I know it's been talked about at the county level. The county board approved security. It's at the courthouse, and the city's going to be taking some steps to provide a safer environment, not only for our employees, but for folks that might be visiting City Hall for a particular reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of traffic in and out of there, and it's unfortunate, but it also, I know I speak for a number of listeners I've talked to that we're happy to hear that for everybody's safety, for everybody's well-being. Yeah. That's going to take some time. There's no real kind of outline of that yet. It's just kind of getting figured out.
First phase is really cameras and making sure we've got cameras at city property and entrances and things that where they're frequented by the public, or there's high value and inventory and that type of thing. And then the other piece is I think it's door access, making sure that folks are able to access doors that they need to, and others that may prohibiting access where it isn't necessary.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, and that's good to hear that's progressing there and everything. Gentlemen, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left. Was there anything that either of you wanted to touch on that we didn't get a chance to? And again, the phone lines are open if anybody wants to call in, 424-2600.
I'll give a brief project update on some of our construction projects.
Great.
Folks that have been downtown, I've heard a lot of comments. We've got everything tore up, and we certainly do. But the projects are progressing nicely. Our East Grand Avenue project, the second phase of that, the underground infrastructure is all in, and we'll start seeing some pavement pretty soon on East Grand Avenue between Lincoln and 8th Street. The intersection is currently under construction at Lincoln and East Grand, so that's closed. Folks can kind of take that detour down 8th Street over to Baker to get around. Some of the work by some of the other utilities, We Energies, things like that are wrapping up in the downtown area. So we're getting some of those things cleaned up. We've got the Grand Avenue Bridge open back up to 2nd Street, so there's better access downtown. And we'll have 3rd and 4th Streets open probably in the next couple of weeks in conjunction with that project.
Thanks.
Our aquatics project's going well. We have had some interesting comments from some folks. We'd really love to see people use that See Click Fix app. Some pictures come in with some watermelons and some big potholes, and it's been an incentive for us and helps us identify where there's some problems for our maintenance activities. And so we're certainly out and about, and we appreciate the public's informing us of areas. So our summer road work is well underway.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Appreciate that update. It looks like we might have either a question for one of you guys or an early caller for Over the Back Fence. We're going to find out together right now. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Do you have a question for either the mayor or Joe?
Yes, for the mayor, please.
Okay.
James Canoyer, homeowner over in the Metcalf area here, subdivision.
Sure.
What does a homeowner do if you have more refuse to throw out that'll fit in the container, and if it's piled neatly next to it, will the city crew take it then? I'll hang up and listen for Zach's answer. Thank you.
Thanks for the call.
So presently, because the process is automated, the crews will not get out of the truck and then reload the bin for a second dumping, if you will, of that canister. So it does have to fit in the bin. If it's from a large, special event that maybe you held or something like that, you certainly are welcome to take it to the landfill. It's going to come at your cost. The other thing is I would encourage folks, I have I opted for the small recycle bin. I've got a small one-stall garage. I like to keep it all inside so people don't see the garbage bins outside. And one thing that I've talked with my neighbors about is the ability to use their bins, that they probably have capacity, so on garbage day, if their bins aren't full, go up to your neighbor, and hopefully people have good neighborly relations in their neighborhood. Just ask them. I'm guessing they'd be more than willing to allow you if they didn't fill their bins and had some extra storage space in their bin to throw it in there. Joe, I don't know if you've got anything further to add.
No, I agree with your sentiments, and with the size of the garbage container, we always allowed up to 33 gallon containers. So, based on our ordinance, it hasn't changed. But obviously, if we were picking up more, this does change things a bit. But it takes a lot of material to fill that 96 gallon cart.
Yeah, you got to be trying almost. And to your point, Mayor, I know that my parents have a relationship like that with their neighbors across the street. Their neighbors across the street very rarely have a lot of garbage, and somehow my mom and dad create a lot of garbage just by themselves, and their dog. I should mention Sam too, their dog. So maybe he adds to a lot of it. I don't know. But they certainly have a little more than normal, so that their neighbors across the street oftentimes will bring over their garbage, and then it's not only easier for the garbage disposal to pick up on just one side of the street, but it also is a kind of. It works out for them. It kind of actually is a chance for them to talk sometimes, I notice. My dad and the other gentleman talking, just because that's an opportunity for them to talk. And might be a great opportunity for you to talk with your neighbors a little bit more, too.
And I would also add on recycling, because I know in the advent of Amazon and all this really excessive packaging material, it's great for those that are making container board, like ND paper and others, is to take them to one of two drop sites, ODC over here at Paperboard, Corenzo's facility. You can drop all the cardboard and paper you want. In fact, I don't actually use my recycle bin for paper or cardboard because I'd like it to stay local and not have to get commingled and separated. So it's something I would remind folks on recycling.
That's great. That's a great point. We've got about 2 minutes left, so we'll take as many calls as we can here, but want to make them short. Good morning. You're on the show. You have a question for the mayor or Joe? Okay, great question. Great question. We're going to go ahead and take another one. Good morning. You're on Morning Magazine. Do you have a question for Joe or Mayor Zach Vruwink?
I just got a comment. I hear the mayor's thing about the electronical drop-off and such and so forth, and like cardboard he just mentioned. I'm just wondering if they ever think of like a local community business in Wisconsin Rapids that they can mention. There's multiple ones I know, but he's kind of mentioned like the big box stores, and then he's talked about cardboard. There's local communities and companies in the community that accept that stuff too. I was just wondering if he's aware of that or if he's not, and I'll wait for the answer. Thank you.
Yeah, we do have a list of actually those vendors on the city's website, and I'm looking to Joe to direct me exactly where it is, but I believe it's under the Public Works Streets refuse page. So whether it's private landfill sort of resource and private pickup options, but in terms of other recyclers, I believe we've got a list of them, whether they're express recycling. My former business, I believe, still accepts e-waste. ODC, I believe, takes e-waste. Those are the ones off the top of my head, but I'm not sure exactly what that list looks like. If we're missing folks that do take that material, that want to get listed on there, we want to provide as much accurate information as we can to residents, especially, I can't tell you the last time I used the Yellow Pages, so we want to make sure we get that information on our city website.
Right. And so if there is a business that is not on there, please reach out to the city and let them know, because they want to be on there. Exactly. You certainly are not including anybody.
Yep. Yeah, if someone goes to our city website, under the Public Works section and Garbage and Recycling. On that page, there's a link, 2019 Garbage and Recycling Guide for Residents. At the bottom of that document, it has a whole page of, or I guess it's kind of in the middle of the document, and it's broken down for appliances, the different places that you can call: batteries, construction materials, e-waste, fluorescent bulbs, hazardous waste, medications, oil, paper, plastic grocery bags, things to reuse, tires, things like that. There's phone numbers for all of those, and it lists the businesses that accept them. So it's a great resource.
Thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate you doing that. And unfortunately, guys, that's all the time we have. That hour just goes by so fast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But again, I want to thank Travis Plowman with Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. Thanks a lot, Travis, for being in with us today. And Joe Terry, thank you very much, Joe, for the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And as always, Mayor, always good to talk with you.
Thank you.
Again, we've been speaking with Mayor Zach Vruwink and Joe Terry, along with having Travis Plowman in from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media here on Morning Magazine. Be sure to be listening tomorrow. In part one, we'll have Rick Bacoka in with the Town of Rome update, and Laura Huber in with a 4-H program update for you, right here on Morning Magazine, AM 1320 WFHR.